Hello, Dr. Tobias. Thanks for joining us today in Scouted by GreyB. And I'd like to start right away with my very first question. Actually, when we were searching for new innovation coming out of Europe, one of the name that got highlighted in our research is FluDect. I was very curious about it, and that's why I thought to directly talk to you about the innovation that FluDect is working on and how it's basically solving the issue of water quality, food quality. And I went through the website. It was very technical and it's a very scientific solution. So Dr. Tobias, can you share some in basically in plain language something that I myself who's outside of your industry can understand, what Pluduct is doing and how it is working.
Yeah, Shabas, thank you very much for the invitation, and also thank you very much for being so curious about our company and our solution. So basically, 60% of the biomass on our planet is represented by microorganisms. So microorganisms play a crucial role for our ecosystem, but they actually also play a crucial role for many industrial processes, ranging from water treatment over fermentation or even agriculture and food processing. So the right microorganisms can create food, but the wrong microorganisms actually can also destroy food, which leads to food recalls every day worldwide, creating really a waste and also causing a damage of hundreds of billions of dollars each year. So why is this actually happening? Because still today we can measure in production processes very easily temperature or pH values, so physical or chemical parameters. But the main one for bioprocesses, naming the bioparameters such as bacteria growth, is still not possible to determine online. So what is done is in industries, samples are drawn from production site, sent to the laboratory, and only days or sometimes hours later, you get the result. And this way, this waste of material and this uncertainty is created because we are living still in a black hole of information when it comes to microorganisms inside production processes. We at FluDect now working on a solution which a device what you directly can implement into industrial plants, and there it measures liquid product fully automatically 24/7 and determining quantity of microorganisms and gets the data directly in real time to the plant's operator such that they can directly react on contaminations and thus optimize their processes. And for this, we are using a novel type of biosensor technology, which is called fluorescent resonator signature. And that's the core technology of our startup right now.
Okay, it sounds very crucial and really interesting how this is working. Dr. Tobias, actually, I when I was looking and when I was reading about similar innovation, I saw that this pathogen detection or this quality measurement innovations have existed before as well. So, can you tell me how FluidX's innovation is different, or basically what's the USP of your
So
technology?
of course, so this challenge have been around since decades, and since then companies try to solve it most of the time using standard laboratory testing, which is then automized for the use of industrial processes. But so far, the weakness of this laboratory analysis is that always a comprehensive sample preparation is required, which can be done today for simple analytes such as water, basically pure water. But when it comes to complex samples such as milk or even wastewater, it becomes complicated. So solutions exist at the moment for water and stuff, but they don't exist for example, raw milk or even pharmaceutical fermentation and rich media. So, and we are actually came up with a new type of biosensor which can skip sample preparation and can do measurement directly in rich sample, for example, raw milk or even wastewater. And thus, we can bring the analysis directly to industrial facilities, even for complex samples like used in food processing, for example.
If I understood correctly, it's not just plain what are the usual technologies they were able to do this kind of testing, and also they're not continuous. They take a lot of time, and sometimes they require specific equipments. And comparing that to FluidX's innovation, basically your FluidX uh, product So can you also name call, basically, is it you, I think you mentioned the name but I missed it. So what, do you have a device that that any industry can use and implement in their supply chains, or how does this work?
Yeah. So we founded the company in 2021, and since then we could develop our first product, which is making use of our fluorescent resonator signature technology. It's a compact at-line device, which can be used for measuring different type of samples and actually searching for different type of targets. It's at the moment still manual loaded, so you can sit it next to the production line, draw a sample at the production site, give it into the machine, and get a result within 20 minutes. But we will not stop here because we already developed the next generation, which is then a fully automated device. And this device can then be placed inside a production facility and draws samples automated, such that no user interaction is required any longer. But both devices are already useful for the industry. So there are clients who actually want to have one device where they can have multiple tests running in a short time at production site. But there are other clients with big production facilities, and they want to have a stationary, fixed mounted device which is doing all the work without any manual interaction.
Okay, I think that that increases the autonomous nature of your innovation, and basically, so continuous monitoring can happen and the data gets collected at a specific place from where your clients can see it easily and process it. And
Mhm.
I'll jump back to previous question that I basically what I was about to say. It's not just the simple liquids that you are able to detect pathogens in. It's basically any kind of complex liquid or basically substance. Okay.
So at the moment, we were dealing with, of course, water, wastewater, raw milk, but even molasses or green juice, which is sometimes used for bioethanol fermentation or other fermentation. So we did research and development on quite a wide range of complex media already, and we could show that our system works. But of course, if a client comes with a completely new substance, we would be happy to test this and maybe make a pilot project to show the capabilities of our system, even in new types of media, what we have not worked before.
That's great. I think the adaptability of the system is also one of the unique point. So
Yeah.
talking about adaptability, actually I was about to come to this question. I saw but actually when I was reading about you on the website, I saw both the devices that you mentioned. So that one
Mhm.
is that can be kept anywhere, and then one is that directly can be attached to any inline outlet, and it can do the monitoring continuously. So how easy it is for a new company to adopt, basically, as you mentioned, you can also customize it to
Mhm.
detect very specific material based on your client requirements. So how easy or difficult it is for for a new company to figure out how to use basically FluDect's devices in their production lines?
Yeah, so our aim is to make it as easy as possible. It should be as easy as just measuring the temperature. And that's what we design our product for. We also take a lot of input from existing clients to even optimize current devices such that they become even more easy to use and to operate. If we start with a complete new topic, working together with clients, what we usually do is we start with a pilot study. So we start with asking questions to client of what they really need and what their pain points are and what they really need to get measured to get an idea, an impression of what our product need to develop. And the second step is then proving and maybe optimizing in some cases our device such that it fits to the customer needs in a perfect manner. And also do a showcasing that it works. And if the pilot study works out well, then we can continue and also deliver devices.
Okay. So just Tobias, was it basically the product was designed like this, or did your team had to face some challenges to make it this much adaptable that it can be applied to any other industry?
Yeah, good question. So we are dealing with a completely new type of biosensor, which the world has not seen before. So the technology itself is pretty young still. So of course we are facing challenges all the time and still are facing challenges. We consider ourselves as a deep tech startup which is still developing the technology, and it maybe take like the next few years to optimize the system and tweak out everything. But we are on our way, and we have actually a very good team of researchers and developers which could up to now solve all problems we were facing. And so we are on a very good way.
Yeah, and I can see a future where, and please let me know if I'm on the right track, I'm on the same frequency as you. Do you also envision that maybe FluDect devices can be made it in a way that they can be used in houses by normal people, like people like me, and maybe I just implement them in on my water supply or maybe in my kitchen, and then I'm able to detect. So can do you also envision a future like that, that this is so easy to implement and use?
Yeah, this is actually our far vision. So, of course, starting with a new technology, it always comes with a price. So, at the moment, we are targeting big industrial clients who have to solve big problems, of course. But on the long run, we will simplify the technology in such a way that it becomes affordable even for households, maybe in the future. And then of course, it's thinkable that one device is installed at a water tap, and you can monitor the water quality at each time of the water which comes out of your tap, and then you can decide yourself whether I can drink it directly or whether I should boil it before drinking or even filtering it. So, and that's the far vision to get to the point that the technology is mature enough to go and really budget devices even, and then go to the consumer market on the very long run.
So, Tobias, what is the current immediate challenge that your team is trying to solve to eventually reach that
Yeah.
vision? Obviously, what's on your plate at the moment?
So at the moment we are working with a number of pilot customers and also customers, and could show that our device creates value for customers. But we actually work on making device even more robust and even more simpler to use, such that it becomes an easy plug and play solution for our clients to roll it out to their plans. And that's what we are currently working on. Since our startup is just 3 years old, and we came up with the very first product, we always, as usual, there are some child issues with the product. And we are working on this right now together with pilot clients. And in the next year, we think that we will achieve the plug and play solution, which can be then used by all customers just as easy as measuring temperature.
It sounds very exciting. I'm really excited for the future of FluDect. Uh, so I have a few technical questions as well related
Mhm.
to new beads. That is the
Yeah.
backend technology that's being used. Uh, so was there any scientific or technical challenge that your team had to go through or solve, to create this new solution? As you mentioned, you're working on a completely new technology.
Mhm.
Nothing like this has existed before. So I'm sure, it must have been difficult.
So maybe you're talking about a deep dive into the technology. So what makes our technology special in a way? So compared to the state of the art of biosensors, where they use always microfluidics and microfluidic channels as sensors, we decided to move away from this because they have quite a lot of drawbacks. So what we did is we created microbeads, and those are tiny small particles which act as a sensor. So they're actually 10 micrometer in diameter, which is about a tenth of a hair in size. We can mix them with the analyte, and they swim around in the analyte and actually capture specific target organisms, what we are searching for.
Hmm.
And then they remotely message that they have captured something. We can read them out actually optically, remotely, in even complex samples. And that's the really new thing about it, because this gives us the freedom to really have a good interaction with a sample, and we can even do this without any sample preparation, as said before. And of course, there were challenges because we are using an optical type of readout, which is making use of a complex algorithm and also a complex optics. So we did quite a lot of prototyping, both in optics but also in algorithms development, to figure out the best way to read our sensors. and to get the highest sensitivity, even if you are dealing with really complex and complex samples. This was one challenge on hardware software side, but of course, since we are dealing with biology, biology brings also a huge complexity. So one challenge is also that each bacteria we are detecting behaves kind of different. So what we need to do is to tweak the beads in such a way that they attach even to different types of bacteria. We do have protocols to prepare the beads in such a way that we can tune them to specific organisms, and we are still not finished here because at the moment we have a short list of bacteria what we can detect with our microbeads, and the microbead development will continue to a point that we can really detect like as many as possible in the future.
So basically, there is no ceiling of what can be detected, right? Anything can be detected using these microbeads.
Basically, yes, because we are depending on what capture molecules, so what they use actually antibodies, for example, or aptamers or bacteriophages to capture specific target organisms via antibody binding to their surface. Depending on what capture molecules we are using, we can either detect bacteria, but we can also detect protein concentrations, which is sometimes useful for pharmaceutical fermentation. But we could also show that we can go for artificial material. Like the latest development we have done was microbeads for detecting PFAS, which is a very small molecule in our, which now is also in our environment. And we could even show that we can go for artificial material. So we don't even stop with bacteria or protein concentrations, but can go beyond that.
Oh, detection of PFAS is really interesting because I think in Europe PFAS were banned like quite a while ago, and in US has also followed suit. So I think that detection gives you a really good market to explore as well. Uh,
It becomes more and more interesting to us, and detecting it online, this is like a huge leverage. Yeah.
we have also published a lot of content about PFAS once it was banned. So I'm well aware of it. The importance for companies to replace it in their products, or I think to replace it, you anyway need a detection mechanism.
Exactly. Even so, one of our clients we developed the PFAS beads for. They're actually a water purification company. So, and they actually wanted to make sure that their water purification works. So, what they need to do is they have to have an online monitoring before it enters the water purification and after the water purification, just to see how much PFAS they remove.
It's very interesting. One more tech aspect that I wanted to get your views on is, since we are working with a continuous monitoring system, I think it is generating a lot of data for your customers, right? So all the sensors, I wasn't able to find this information, so I'm asking you, is there an artificial intelligence side of thing to process this data, since this data must be in huge volumes and it must be very complex to read continuously?
Yeah, good question. So I would say maybe we use some sort of AI inside the algorithms, but so far, actually, our experience was that the best algorithms or the best performance of algorithms we could create was with numerical algorithms, which are simulating the physical nature of our system. So that's why we are using not much of AI at the moment. And the other algorithms are even working better and more reliable and more robust at the moment. But for the future, maybe we will implement even more AI. But it also requires some computational power. So let's see how efficient we can get with it.
Yes, yes. I think it's AI is just now it's like a baseline for everybody wants to do something with AI, and that's why it's on my list of questions.
Yeah, I understand. So we actually get this question frequently, but I mean, I use AI on a daily basis for my office work actually, and I think all in our companies use it for even development. But inside our product, it doesn't play a major role.
Makes sense, makes sense. Just a few last question. I won't be taking a lot of your time. So since we are working with food safety and wastewater monitoring and what quality measurement, general quality management, there must have been many regulations. Also because there's so many regulation in Europe and in basically Europe is famous for the safety, food safety, and even the PF example that we talked about, these kind of regulations. So, were there any policies or similar guidelines that you had to follow when developing basically your product, or maybe it is working in your favor by highlighting the importance of this regulation to your clients and showing them why they should use your products, or maybe it must have been one of the challenges your team must have solved to create the product itself. So, can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So regulations are important. And of course, in the midterm, we are trying to build a system, or we're building a system that will follow all the regulations and be even certified that it is going to follow this regulations. But at the moment, since we are still a young company, and all the approval process takes very long in terms
Yeah.
of years, we didn't have the chance yet to develop a system which is fully conform with the regulations. But we also were facing that in industry, of course, they have to be in compliance with regulations. But on top of that, in many industries, they perform 90% of their measurements in addition to what they have to do for meeting the regulations, just to optimize their processes or do a quality control internally. So this is what we are currently targeting, this 90% of measurements which are done on top of the regulations. And
Mm.
there the clients are completely free what system and measurement technology they use. And of course, on the long run, getting the system certified, we maybe also can do the measurement of the which is required for the regulations.
Yes, yes, it makes sense, and of course, I totally understand. This is very well known that how long it takes to get any kind of regulatory approvals. So, and specifically for a very young startup like you, like FluDect, so totally understandable. But it's good to hear that you're on right track and you have taken these things in consideration.
Mhm.
And I think with that, Tobias, that was the end of my question line. But I do have one curiosity, which is like something I asked to a lot of founders. Since, as you mentioned, this is a very new technology, like no one else has developed this kind of thing, and this industry is also very competitive and huge market, right? So I just wanted to know, what are, as a founder and as also somebody from a very academic background and deep scientific knowledge, what how has this journey been for you as an entrepreneur running your own company and basically developing something that hasn't existed before? It must have been difficult, and did you ever feel like maybe this is not going to work, or maybe how will I expand this company? Anything you'd like to share?
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually it's a lot of work, it is tons of work. So when we started the company, of course, we had a impression that it's going to be not easy, but actually, being a founder, you are facing challenges on a daily basis, and lots of them. It was definitely harder than we expected it to be from the very beginning. But the good thing is that the technology we are developing is so unique and can really solve a real world problem, which we still have. And
Hmm.
this really drives us to even go through all the difficulties. And this gives us a certain strength to muscle through all the challenges we are facing. And I don't regret to founded the company 4 years ago, or 3.5 years ago, and I'm still happy to work at this company because we have now a very unique and skilled team, which is really fun to work with, and I feel that we can face all the challenges which will come up in the next.
This is very motivating for me to hear this, and I think what you said about having basically having this strong confidence in your solution and basically your solution also working, I think this, you are absolutely right. This is a very huge driving factor to keep going and just face all
Mhm.
the challenges. Thank you for sharing this with me. And with that, Tobias, I think we are end of our interview. I got to learn a lot of new things. Actually, this entire technology is super new to me. I hadn't really read about anything about basically these quality monitoring systems, and I'm so glad I first came across FluidAct before we dived into anyone else. So thank you for joining me, and thanks for giving your time.